Hi guys, welcome to the practical application of moments of truth. So what we're going to do on this one is we're going to look at some examples. We're going to look at how we use the moments of truth within the context of the 6-step innovation approach. So I'll introduce that concept to you alongside with us understanding the applicability of a moment of truth. So with that in mind, let's share the screen. Flip into the... So yes, so in the first stage, what we did was talk about, there's a whole bunch of these outside-in concepts. The moment of truth is the sort of the baseline one that everything else will tend to hang off. And we also discussed this idea that it's the cause of all work. So when we're applying that, we can apply it in a number of different ways. Just one technique that we use, it's called the 6-step innovation approach, or 6SI for short. Originally grew out of companies like Apple, who were looking beyond the traditional ways of doing innovation and seeing about how could they innovate innovation. So indeed, you can actually take innovation itself and apply this principle of moments of truth to it, and you come up with a new model. So we're going to have a look at how that model actually operates, the 6SI, with in the context of moments of truth. So if you understand the customer and understand moments of truth, you'll get 6-step innovation. So if you haven't already done the moments of truth and what it's about, then I suggest you go back, just have a look at that one, refresh your memory in terms of what it's about and why it's the fundamental cause of all work. Because if it is, as we've already said, there's design principles involved here that if we could figure out ways of removing moments of truth, all the associated work, all the things that people are doing, all the IT systems, everything that's in association with that will go away also. If you can't remove it, how's about improving it? Okay. So with that in mind, the 6-step innovation approach, identify a customer experience that needs fixing. Recall also at this point, Steve Jobs, 1997, the customer experience is the process. So to all intents and purposes, what we're thinking about is process is an experience and experience is a process. Also recall in the discussion about the what is a moment of truth, we talked about the customer experience is frequently much broader than our organizational context. It starts when a need arises and it isn't over till a need finishing. So when we're thinking about a customer experience that needs some attention, it might need fixing. What we're then going to do is document those moments of truth in a nice and easy way that doesn't require anybody to have an MSc in process or customer experience. We then go through steps and stages of figuring out what are the actions that would eliminate the moments of truth. As I said, we want to get them removed. We'll assess the value that those actions would create, and we do that against the Triple Crown. How will it benefit us in terms of cost, revenue, and service? We'll then create the new experience, right? So the new sets of moments of truth, and then we'll figure out how do we migrate from the old to the new. Okay, we're good with that? Excellent, good. So this first one, identify a customer experience, and it says they're usually one that needs fixing. This isn't rocket science, as it said, it could have an experience with significant issues. It's not working well, it's broken, it's falling apart. An experience that needs modernizing, right? So you might be digitizing your experiences. You might want to introduce, robotic process automation or some such similar thing, or artificial intelligence in there. So we need to modernize what we're doing. It might be in experiences and processes that are mission critical. Without them, we don't have an organization. There could be experiences and processes that you've identified as part of a strategic change. We need to move in the market. We need to deliver product and service in a different way. We need to apply our bureaucracy with a different emphasis. We need to speed things up. There's a whole bunch of things that come with that. And also, there's going to be experiences and processes that are out of control. And the dynamic of that is that frequently processes are designed with good intent in mind, but they'll become overly complicated over time and may go out of control. So if we're thinking about that in terms of documenting the current state, that's pretty straightforward because it involves the people in the organization. It may involve your partners who are also responsible for delivering customer success. With that in mind as well, it's quick and effective. It doesn't, all people need to do is get this concept of the moment of truth, and then they can do it. So how many interactions do we have going on in this process versus this process, right? It can be run remotely as well. And as we've found in the world over the last year or two, that's particularly useful where we've got distributed teams who need to collaborate, to make things better. So it works really well in those environments as well. The actions that we want to do is, first of all, we list all the moments of truth from top to bottom. So what do we mean top to bottom? Well, start with your first moment of truth at the top and then work your way down to the later moments of truth, and do it in sort of time order, going from the top to the bottom. I always have a parlance when we're using moments of truth. It always starts with the word customer. So this customer may be an external customer. It could be an internal customer. And there's a whole bunch, when we get into customer categorization, we'll talk about how do we think about customers in a different way, rather than through that marketing segmentation lens. How do we categorize customers based on need? But that's for another day. Let me not get ahead of myself. So we list those things out from top to bottom. And then we're going to go through a process of going through each moment of truth and identify an action that would eliminate that moment of truth. We refer to this within the CM method, the customer experience management method. Go find out about that on cmmethod.com, as connecting the dots and drawing the lines. It's letting us understand what is the cause and what is the effect. Given the moment's truth is the cause of everything, right? Fixing the cause will eliminate the effect. It tends to be interactive and fun. People are going to come up with wacko jacko ideas for how we remove some of these moments of truth, as you'll see with my example in a minute or two. Some actions are obvious and some actions are very easy to get to. But one of the stipulations here is that every action you create for a moment of truth elimination must be unique. So you can't repeat that action against other moments of truth. Once you've used that action, it's used. So if you start off with 20 moments of truth, you're going to have 20 unique actions which would eliminate them. So the stage of figuring out, you start at the lowest one. Go to the lowest moment of truth, the last moment of truth, if you like, in terms of it will be the bottom of that long list that you've got. And work up, and as I said, every idea, every action you're going to put in place to eliminate the moment of truth must be unique, right? And an action cannot eliminate multiple moments of truth. The task in hand here is to find an action that would eliminate the moment of truth. And you can't skip any. Sometimes you might want to come back to one or two because you want to move on to do the easy ones first. But across a landscape of an experience, 20 odd moments of truth will have 20 odd unique actions. What we then do is, having identified those actions and working from the bottom up, or working backwards, as some people would say, is try to resolve the significant issues by putting actions in place which would remove moments of truth. So let me take you to ice storms in Canada for a minute or two, and you come down in the morning and you find your Mustang has been frozen into the ground. And in northern latitudes and extreme southern latitudes, this is a fairly common phenomenon in the wintertime, where it actually rains, but the temperature at ground level is below freezing point. And hence things stick to whatever the article is that they actually fall on. Now, if you're in Canada and you run a power utility company, then that's pretty critical to your success, isn't it? The power's going to go off because what happens is it rains, the ice accretes on all your infrastructure, the infrastructure gets too heavy, and as you can see, that it collapses. Now, the moment of truth for a customer, in this instance, an external customer, would be the power going off. And if it's already minus 20 degrees Celsius outside and you lose heat and power, right? The lights go off, the heat goes off, you've no power anywhere, right? You're stuck. So how would we eliminate that moment of truth from ever happening, the power going off? Well, you might come up with a whole different sort of bunch of ideas where you start to think about, well, what could we do? What action could we put in place to eliminate? And various things might be suggested, like, well, we could supply all the homes with generators, right? Very expensive, but we could do that. That would keep the power on. So immediately the power went off from the grid, it would trip in the generator. Yeah, expensive option, that one. What about putting all the cables underground? Well, anybody who's been to Canada will know that there's a lot of tundra, a lot of permafrost there, right? And where it's not permafrost, it's bog and marsh and forest. And it's the second largest geographically in terms of size country in the world. So with that in mind, you're starting to think, oh, well, those ideas, what other ideas could we use? And at this point, this is where the fun usually kicks in. There was one guy in this workshop says, oh, I've got an idea. I go backwards hunting, and everybody's going, oh no, Jim, don't tell that story again. He said, no, seriously, it's going to give us a solution to this. It's going to give us an action to eliminate the moment of truth. I go backwards hunting. And when I'm backwards hunting, and frequently, especially in the springtime, rather around about now, is I get chased by bears. And that's happened like 3 times. Now, you can't outrun a bear. They're much faster than we are, right? you must climb a tree, but birds can climb trees as well. So you climb as high as you can. Now, the bird being a big bulky beast is only going to get so far up the tree, right, before it realizes there's a bit of danger here. So what does the bird do to get you out the tree? Right. Again, don't think too long about this. It's usually pretty quick. Yep, the bird drops down to the bottom of the tree. And what does it do? It shakes the tree to get its dinner. Right. So this guy's, Jim's idea was, what we could do is, if we know there's a forecast of an ice storm coming in, all right, we could tie chunks of meat to all the electricity pylons or the power lines and so on. The birds will come along and shake these things, right? And the water wouldn't have time to freeze on the wires. It would just fall off. Well, of course, that action would eliminate the moment of truth. But how much would it cost in terms of grizzly bears and all the other sort of paraphernalia and the chunks of meat and everything? Right. What about if we could create that effect? So the effect of being able to shake the trees and the lines. And of course, that is the solution. What these guys did was install a little black box at the top of these electricity pylons and towers. And when the temperature drops below 0 degrees Celsius and the humidity increases to 100%, so it's either foggy or it's raining, right? This box picks up the current from the wire and starts gently vibrating, and the water doesn't have time to freeze on the wire before it falls off. In the 5 years since they've done that and implemented that, right, they haven't had one single outage as a consequence of an ice storm. Oh, amazing solution from a pretty wacko jacko idea. So what you want to do is understand that the ideas themselves might be unrealistic, but it's how would we create that effect? How would we implement that as something practical? And now what we want to do is want to assess the value created against doing that. And mature outside-in companies win the Triple Crown. You can see the articulation of that over on the right-hand side there, where we've got a value created column, and it's got S for service, C for cost, R for revenue, plus. So the really outside-in companies, the really successful ones, the ones that we sort of talk about in the book Dare, which came out in 2020 and became an Amazon bestseller, those sort of organizations will say that the measure of success of going outside in is that every change will win the Triple Crown. We will simultaneously improve service, reduce cost, and grow revenue. And in this instance, the plus factor was brand perception. So would this action improve brand perception? It might be something else for yourselves. The service cost revenue are always given, right? But the plus might be a variable. In pharmaceutical, there was one exercise which the plus factor was, would this help us pass the next regulatory inspection, right? If you're in fast-moving retail, it would be, would this put us ahead of the curve as far as fashion is concerned? It tends to be something that's more time-bound. You know, it might be 12 or 18 months, all right? It's not as fixed as service cost and revenue. So you see, you're going to put a bunch of actions to eliminate here, teleport food from store to home. Well, unless you're at the quantum level, teleportation isn't actually feasible at the moment. However, we could implement that in terms of drone delivery. That would give us some of the benefits of that. What about closing stores down? Well, we could implement centralized warehouses. So if we identify those things in terms of what benefits, what value would we create, the drone delivery improves service, reduces cost, grows revenue, and also improves our brand perception. Close down stores less so. It's actually a detriment to service. People will probably not be able to go and visit you anymore on a retail high street. It also doesn't win any revenue. People might go somewhere else, and brand perception might decline because you're not there for the customer. Will it reduce our costs? Well, yes, by golly, centralizing would probably reduce them. So in a similar sort of way, we can identify what it is, the action to eliminate, how would we implement that, and then what values are created as a consequence. So you can see in the model here, what we've got is a whole bunch of check marks and crosses. Crosses are negative, check marks are positive. So with those things in mind, which are the ones that give us the biggest bang for the buck? That's what we're looking for. So our eyes are drawn immediately to Moment of Truth 3 and Moment of Truth 5. Where we could see move call centers to virtual working and introduce one-click simple ordering. So the challenge then becomes, can we put those things together as an integrated solution, as an integrated experience? What would that integrated experience now look like? So when you're creating this new experience, using the same idea again, use the future state moments of truth would be these, Right. And for the folks who are coming through this, what I'll do is I'll point you at some extra resources afterwards as well, videos of organizations who've done this with examples of it and so on. So there'll be no question that you're not going to get this. You will get this. And assessing that magnitude of the change as well introduces another concept that we'll talk about, the disruption factor. Right. So the disruption factor is a means of measuring the brokenness before to how fantastic it is afterwards, right? So the current state versus future state comparison. So I've got an auto insurance example here. It was a real one. They started off with 20 odd moments of truth. And then they installed a little black box underneath within the engine compartment. The little black box sounds an alarm, sends the signal back to base. They call you on your mobile phone. Are you all right, Steve? Yeah, just did a slick patch and come off the road. You don't need any medical support. No, I'm okay. And is the car safe and secure? Yeah, it's in a ditch. It's out of the way of anybody else. Okay, stay with the car and we'll have somebody there in 30 minutes. Somebody arrives within 30 minutes. They give you keys to their car, which they've just arrived in, and it's always better than the one you were driving anyhow. They check you over, make sure that you're okay, you're not too shaken up and all the rest of it. And they say, okay, leave it with me. We'll bring the car back to you within 24, 36 hours. Okay. And of course, they're trained to liaise with the police, anybody else who might be there and involved in the accident. They're to do any measurements and they're to do all that other sort of stuff that sometimes happens. Next thing you know, as a customer, you get an email or an SMS text, which actually confirms the car's been fixed and then the car's returned as new. Isn't that pretty cool, right? Now, I think we'd all agree so. So we took a process which was 20 odd days long and 20 odd moments of truth down to 4 moments of truth and 18 to 24 hours. That was what happened. So you don't need to go and get quotes. The car gets taken by the organization to be fixed to its own board of fixers. It gets fixed within like 12 to 18 of sometimes, it could be a write-off, in which case then you're going to be getting a new vehicle. But the whole idea would be is very fast turnaround. So the migrating to the new experience is what you need to think about here is that the longer we don't implement the new experience, the more costs we will suffer, the less revenue and the poorer our service will be. So those are quantifiable things which can actually speed you to the implementation of this change. And fairly typically, you're looking at 50, 60, 70% benefits in terms of cost and service. Sometimes if it's a revenue generating process, you can directly link it back to the growth in revenues. So when you're thinking about Triple Crown, there's very few people, when you go and talk to the top teams, would actually sort of say, no, I don't want to reduce costs, grow revenues and enhance service. My technology projects are more important than that. No, there isn't anybody like that, is there? So you're on the right page by thinking in this way and thinking of the Triple Crown. Some examples, recent examples from the last sort of 12 months. So that's that US automotive claims completion time from 18 to 20 days to 48 hours. Right. Not only did it win the Triple Crown, it reduced the whole, gambit around fraud and things like that. Large pharmaceutical, entirely appropriate. You've already seen some examples of this. Taking a 10-year life cycle, a 10-year cycle of, from molecule to actually getting drug in the marketplace, reducing that to 6 to 9 months. And in doing so, saving lives, literally saving lives. Fast moving retail, 2 days to 2 hours. Guess who that is, right? In hospital, nurses' time as well, freeing up a lot of nurses' time. If you think of the nurse as the customer, the internal customer, not so much the patient in this context. And how do we remove all the moments of truth associated with the nurse's workday? All those going to meetings, filling in those forms, doing the drugs round and things like that. When we know critical to success is the nurse spending more time with people who need acute care. So being able to produce a 40-minute, shut that out the window and improve the 8 or 9 hour shift to 5 or 6 hours actually spent with the patient, again, saves lives, right? Reduce our costs, improves the service, right? In a local authority as well, this was an Australian example where they actually took 44 moments of truth down to 8 in a matter of weeks and took a cycle time of what would have been 9 weeks down to 2 days. And again, that was COVID specific, being able to get release out to sort of retail organizations. So pretty enormous benefits from using 6SI. Here's another example. This is in the business to business space. These guys involved in extended supply chains, supplying parts for engines or indeed full engines themselves. So you can see that the old cycle here is customer identifies a need for a part right the way through to customer giving us a new forecast for when they're likely to need more parts in the future. So there you are. On the bottom left is that 6SI again. So identify the customer experience. Bingo, they've done that. Document the moments of truth. Fantastic. Then transfer those moments of truth onto this. We actually call it the points of failure document, because it lists out all the moments of truth, as you can see here, 28 moments of truth. Identify an action that would eliminate them, remembering it has to be unique. Look at the value created, service cost, revenue, and in this instance, will it meet a need and is it achievable? Right. So with that in mind, we can then identify from those actions to eliminate which are the ones that give us the best return, the biggest bang for the buck. And that's against moments of truth number 6, use customer facilities as distribution warehouses. Moment of truth number 12, eliminate the rush surcharge. Moment of truth number 16, accept the purchase order at time of need, Amazon model. And moment of truth number 28, vendor managed inventory. Now, all those moments of truth that were previously there, the 28, are going to go away in some form. But we want to focus our attention on the ones which give us the best return. So as you can see there, there's a yes against service costs, revenue, and will it meet the need? And achievable in all these instances, yes, it's mediumly achievable, right? So it's highly desirable. So can we craft a solution around those 4 actions to eliminate, and what would the resulting moments of truth look like for the future state? So here we have the future state, moments of truth 1 through to 6, right? Customer identifies need right the way through to customer sending payment, okay? Pretty good stuff, eh? And implementing that in a matter of 3 months. So that's create the new experience. And then, as we said, what you want to do is then migrate the old to the new, recalling that the longer you wait to implement, the more cost you incur, the lower the amount of the revenue, the poorer the service you will provide. So that's innovation, 6-step approach. Okay, so some resources to explore further. And these have all got links for you. Richard Norman, the guy who came up with the moment of truth concept. Jan Carlson, the guy who actually implemented it at Scandinavian. The Moments of Truth book from Jan Carlson. Yeah, that was written in 1982 or 83 or something, but it's still got some gems in there. The ZMOT from Google. So there's a link to that, as there is to Micro Moments of Truth. And then also a link, you can get this book free, right? Outside in version 2021. It's actually like in version 12 or something now, but it's the 2021 version. It was originally published back in 2010. So you can get that book free by going to that link. So I hope you've enjoyed that. So that's 2 concepts we've covered, moments of truth, right? And the 6-step innovation approach. The next one we're going to do is disruption factor. So if you want to come back for that, find out what the disruption factor is, and then find out how to deploy it. See you again soon. Thanks, guys.